Ba-ding! Is that how we start? Do we have a jingle?
Right, exactly. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Lemon Cake. If you haven't checked us out before, this is Chelsea. My name is Amber, and here we're just sharing a little bit about our parenting journey of children with disabilities. We hope that you're able to take something away from this. We may not be therapists, but or doctors, but we have our experiences to speak from, and so hopefully that's something that will help you out. So for today's episode, we are answering a question. What's the question, Chelsea?
The question is, how do you move on after diagnosis?
Right, and I think this is a big one that hits the heartstrings.
Yeah.
Because that's like a big pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the first things when we were talking about this and I was brainstorming is you really your adrenaline's pumping and you maybe get shoved into this like vortex of grief and you're not sure how to process it to start. So you are really just focused on trucking forward.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that in that moment, you're really thinking about how do I process this and move on. You're in that kind of like fight or flight. But looking back, some of the things that I think really helped me cope was the first thing is like a resource that we're going to share with you guys. And we can link in the bio here, but is a poem that was written by a woman named Perl Kingsley. And it's called Welcome to Holland. I can't remember who originally shared it with me, but it's come up so many times and I've shared it so many times. And the gist of it is just about planning a trip to Italy and you're ready for that. And that's like having a child. And then you get off the plane and you're in Holland and it's not what you expected. So you can check that out more. But for me, it really gave me a good perspective on how to be in a better headspace and not think of it being as this like daunting, awful thing of having a diagnosis that could be so scary at the time. So we'll definitely share that with you. Another thing that was really important to me, and I didn't really realize it until Kai was a little older, is therapy. I know it's becoming more popular now to talk about mental health and really not taboo to go get help. And it was really important for me that I go speak with someone that could be not a doctor, not a nurse, just really hear my feelings and wasn't necessarily walking it with me. I had my husband, excuse me, and my mom and my dad and a lot of friends. But they shared that journey and that experience in a way that having that outside perspective was really helpful for me.
Yeah.
So go get yourself a therapist. No shame in it. I had trial and error a couple and I found a really, really awesome lady. And I love her. So that was very helpful. And I think the third thing that I really wanted to touch base on that I think is really important as you're trying to move forward and process getting that diagnosis is really taking time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's face it, moms, how often do we really take time for ourselves?
I was going to say, how often do you take time to shower?
Not often. And I think that that's important just as a parent in general. Or even if you are really caught up in your career and you're working a lot, or you're a caretaker for like an elderly parent, and this can go in so many ways, but it's just so important to take some time for yourself. But I think when you get a child who has such medical complexities or, these physical disabilities, you feel so guilty if you're not there with them all the time and you're not the one doing it all the time. So I I think it's important to find the people that you trust that can step in and watch your kiddo for an hour or two so that you can go sit at a coffee shop. Mine is my guilty pleasures. I love to get my nails done. Doesn't help our budget, but it really, 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 for whatever reason, just makes me feel so fresh. And it's like something I've done only for me. Even if it's just so that you can go take a walk outside.
Yeah.
Something that you can do for you. Easier said than done, but important.
Yeah.
I know that Chelsea had a couple other things that she's going to share too. Those are just what came to my mind to start, and some other fun resources. So how would you say, Chelsea, that it was, how did you cope, or how were you able to move past that diagnosis with Kinnan?
Okay, so first of all, everything that Amber shared is so good. I think those are valid, like very tangible things that you can take and go and act on.
Yeah.
And that last one of just making sure you take time for yourself and realizing that it is easier said than done. It is so important, even if it's starting with 5 minutes,
Right.
and progressing from there. When you clear your head, you're better for the situation. Come back better prepared to take care of what is in front of you. But I think, sometimes when we go through a traumatic experience like this, you don't see these things coming. Like, it's like you wake up one day and life is just different. Mm-hmm. And you don't know when or if that is going to end, if it's going to get harder every day or not. But it can make you feel so sick to your stomach. And speaking of like lemon cake and taking lemons and making them into lemon cake, like how do you actually take those proverbial lemons and make that lemon cake when you honestly feel so weak that you can't even squeeze anything? You can't even focus on what's next. When Kinnan got her diagnosis and we walked out of the hospital, I'm one of those people that was like, everything's gonna be fine. Everything's fine. I'm just gonna keep going. So I put my head down and I just keep going. But I didn't realize that in all of that, I was not taking time for myself, and I was not really understanding what to do. And one of the things that I was reflecting on is that I think it was probably 4 years after Kinnan's diagnosis, because I was looking through some of my notes and journaling, which has been very helpful for me. And it was about 4 years before I really felt like myself again. So sometimes moving on after diagnosis doesn't mean that you just get up the next day and you decide to continue taking on the world. Sometimes it takes years to actually feel like yourself again. And if that's you, that's okay. I mean, that's certainly been my experience. But what do you do in the interim when you do have to keep going every day? You've got to be there for your family. And there were two things that really helped Blake and I a lot. And one was, we're married. We are going to agree to be a team on the good days and the bad days, literally till death do us part, for better or worse. We're in this together. And that making that commitment to each other was, that it was almost like we remade that vow. And that was crucial for us because I knew that I had a partner that I could always talk to in it, even on the worst days. And the other thing for me, because most of the time I've kind of felt like Dory in Finding Nemo, where I'm like, just keep swimming. And then I'm literally looking around like, I don't even know where I am.
She's like 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney.
I'm like, how do I get home? Yeah. Yes, I felt like that so often. And for those of you who don't know Kinnan's story, she was diagnosed with a genetic disorder. And that brought on like this checklist of things we have to do every single day. So when you're in that zone, you are like head down, just going from the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. And sometimes you have to come up and get air. And the air that I found was in my faith. It was in scripture. And I'm going to link a few verses that specifically spoke to me. But I remember sometimes just in the midst of like the hardest things and not knowing what was next or when I might sleep again, just remembering Romans 5:8, which says, I loved you in your darkest. And that can apply to a lot of different dark situations. And for me, I was like, he still loves me. And it made me feel felt and seen and heard, and know that even if it felt like the world was against me, my God was still for me. And there was a book that I read as well. And that was by Groeschel. It's called Hope in the Dark. And someone gave this to me, and it was the first book that allowed me to feel everything and grieve through it, but still know that there was hope, even if I couldn't see or understand what that might be. And I wanted to read a quick quote from that, just to give you some insight, because I think that this might be something helpful for anyone else. What do you do when you're in the valley? You remember what God has done. When he comforted you, when he guided you, when he answered your prayer exactly the way you wanted him to, and when he didn't and when he didn't do what you wanted. But sometime later you realize is exactly what you needed. And you dared to believe that what he's done before, he will do again. And I looked back at what we went through with Kinnan was the hardest thing that we've ever been through. So it was hard for me to compare that to anything and be like, oh, he did this for me before, so he'll pull me through again.
Right.
So I had to look back at even like the little things that were hard.
Right. That in retrospect didn't seem
They seemed
hard.
like mountains at the time.
Right.
And go, okay, he helped me through what seemed like a mountain then to now. And now I'm going through like the biggest mountain, but he'll still pull me through because his word says that he will.
Right.
That book was incredibly impactful for me. So I'll link a couple of scriptures and that verse. And you guys don't have to agree with me. This is just my background, my faith. It is what pulled me through, and I'd be completely untrue to myself and my story if I didn't share it. And then to wrap things up, one of the things that's really helped Amber and I as well is community.
Right.
And sometimes community doesn't come in the form of the people immediately around you. Because I know you have great family and friends. I have great family and friends, but they have not experienced what we've experienced.
Right.
So they might be here for us, but they can't fully relate.
Correct.
And finding other families that are walking the same path as you, sometimes they're in your backyard, sometimes they're all over the world. So if you want to learn more about how we've actually used social media to create communities of people who I've not even met, some of them in person, but I would still consider them family at this point, then you guys are going to want to tune into the next episode of Lemon Cake, where we talk about social media, kind of the pros and cons, and how to build an online community that can serve you and your family and kind of help you continue walking through the diagnosis and just life. You know, we don't want to always just talk about diagnosis.
Right, exactly.
It's just kind of what we've experienced.
Absolutely. All of the challenges that get thrown your way. So hopefully you guys check in and we can see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Yeah, hello. Nice to see you again.
We still don't know what we're doing.
Nope.
But we're here to serve you.
Yes.
Okay, Amber, that will get edited.
That's it. Really exciting for you.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
I like that with the hand motions. Okay, you do that. Go.
I'm going to keep doing this.
How long do you think we're going to be really awkward at this before we actually figure out what we're doing?
One of these days.
We're so not awkward. Well, no, we're not. Until
No, I don't
we
really
sit
feel like
down
we
and-
are. It's
We're
good.
not.
You can put a camera and then
Yeah.
just like,
Okay.
oh, okay. That's what it is. All right. All right, here we go. Yes, there we go. Tuck the ear. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I got it now. All right. Hey.